Hey, hope you're having a good week. We're going to continue on with some of the same things that we were talking about in the previous episodes, but we're going to shift gears a little bit toward some more specific ways that you can be more productive. And I'm referring a lot to anything that you have to do that is task oriented, that you're working toward a goal. So our immediate and most common instance and example of this is the Veterinary Dental Practitioner Program, which many of you who are listening to, today are in or have gotten through the assessment and are now veterinary dental practitioners. Many of you are not, and if you love dentistry, definitely check out that invite link at the end of the podcast today. But getting through a program that's structured requires that you give yourself some rewards during the day, particularly at the end of the day when your day's through. And I'm going to kind of walk you through how to do some of that. And that is done through a combination of several things. So take out of this what you will. I'm going to maybe pass on part of what I do that I have been taught by some people that are high performance coaches for me and for many, many people that are neuroscientists, clinical psychologists that know this stuff works. And again, anything we talk about in these last episodes is based on science, based on data, research, and researchers that are top in their field in these things. So something as simple as putting things in a calendar that have recurring events and blocks of time that you have to work on particular tasks or particular projects that have individual tasks. So let's say, for example, and this is going to be, the example is probably resonate with most of you, is a program like the Veterinary Dental Practitioner Program, where you have a set bunch of content, whether it be video or written resources, that you have to go through and complete in order to take an assessment at the end to check your skill level, your knowledge level in those particular fields. And in our case, veterinary dentistry. Anything that's practical in veterinary dentistry is part of that assessment that's online that is dictated by 51 hours of videos that you have to go through in order to pass that assessment. So in order to do that, we should block time out during the week that is recurring, that we know is always going to be a time when we can do it. It's going to be a time when we are productive, or most productive. It should be a time when we are not tired or we're not winding down for the day. This is not something that you would do an hour before bed because it would only stimulate and activate your brain centers through the neurochemicals that are released from that type of learning. So it needs to be a time during the day, preferably morning, when you're at your brightest and you're more able to take in new information. You haven't had a lot of decisions that you've had to make during the day, so you don't have that type of fatigue that's setting in as the day forms. So morning is ideal, but whatever works in your schedule and whatever time frame works in your schedule, whether that be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be, I would recommend that you get a calendar of choice, whether it be your iCal or the Windows version of a calendar, or in my case, I use, and many people use, Google Calendar. It's online. Obviously, it's a adjunct to anything that you're using that is Google. as well as Mac. I have a Mac, but I don't use iCal, only to help coordinate the events in Google Calendar. But Google Calendar is super easy. You can create a calendar just for your tasks that nobody else sees, and then you follow that religiously as much as you can, barring obvious things that happen. I mean, life happens and things get in the way. But if you have a time that is specific for going through, for instance, those videos and taking your notes and doing that on a consistent basis, you're going to get through them quicker. Plus, one of the biggest things that you get from having it in a calendar is when you're done, you get to check it off. And when you check it off, you physically get that dopamine release that you do when you are successful at a huge task. Any minor task, you still get that positive neurochemical and others that are released that reward you at the end and completion of that task. And I recommend that you actually check it off. One of my colleagues that I'm studying with now in this realm takes his tasks from his calendar and writes them down every day, and I believe that is a great way to do that. Write them down on a sheet of paper, whether they be 3 or 10, and then as you go through those, the actual physical writing exercise of checking that off or blacking it out is very stimulating to encourage that activity over time, multiple times throughout any given time frame. So the more you do it, the more you're likely to do it, just because of the positive neurochemicals that you get from checking off that task. So for instance, when I am, and I know many of you are working 4 or 5 days a week, so you have a block out time on your calendar. And when I'm using Google Calendar, I use the weekly calendar, and that weekly calendar lets me put those blocks in where I can literally have a time block that shows as a block in the calendar. So that block is, for me, let me get to that real quick so I can look at it. I have a morning routine that I block off until 8:30 every morning. So that generally starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, and from 5 to 8:30, I have things that I do during that morning routine. I exercise, I meditate, gratitude, breathing, walking in nature, whatever it might be that relaxes me and gets me ready for the day. I've got all that time blocked off until that 8:30 time period that I have that activity. Then for us in general practice that have those work days, then those work days are blocked off. You know those are the days you work, they're blocked off, so there's really just one big block there. And then on the times that you have, like that morning, you may not have a morning routine that's as long as mine. You may have a morning routine that is 10 minutes, 20 minutes, at 30, whatever that morning routine is. And then you have the time that you want to spend when you're by yourself that you can work on things like going through the courses for the VDP program. And again, time varies based on your preference, but having that time blocked off and having it be a recurring thing in your calendar so you don't have to write that every day, it's already there, you know it's happening, and then getting to check that off during the day is super, super powerful. And then you can get granular with that as I do, and I fill out, I've got focused work when I'm not working that starts at 8:30 and goes through noon. So I block that time off to do those things that I'm working on that I don't want to be disturbed. And then from 11 to, or from 12 to 12:30, meditate during that period. Go out, walk in nature, and then back to focus work from 12:30 to 3. And then I have heart rate variability, resonance breathing session, which is 20 minutes, which is part of my morning routine. That happens again at 3 p.m. And then I have a power down ritual from 4 p.m. until 5 p.m. where I write down the things I'm going to be doing the next day specifically in that focused work time frame. Now that may be a little bit more detailed than you like, but then once 5 p.m. hits, I'm out. I'm not reachable. I'm not reachable during focused work time either, but that's the time that I spend with my wife, and we do dates and eat and talk and might watch a documentary or a movie or something like that. But those times are out of reach for anything but those activities. So just to give you an example, a personal example might give you a little bit of a framework for which you can start to do that yourself, and I guarantee you that it will change the game for you just by calendaring those things, because unless they're written down, they're probably not going to get done. So the other thing that we need to take into consideration is we're not working all the time, and we're not doing passive recovery like eating, watching documentaries or movies with our wives or our spouses or our significant others. We also have to have active recovery. And so the next episode, we're going to talk about more of what that means and how important active recovery is to being able to function better with our day. And this is not something that you have to do every day, but you can do these things every day, and they're really impactful for me because I've never really incorporated these much until recently. So we'll talk about that next episode. Until then, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.